Hey folks, welcome back to the shop here at Mark Kelly Farm. It's wintertime, and wintertime means shop projects, and we have a super cool product review for you today. I'm looking forward to it, so stick around. We might be able to save you a ton of money. So a company called ARCCAPTAIN reached out to us and wanted to partner with us on a product review, and they wanted us to review their MIG 200 product. So they sent it to us. We're going to give it a try. We'll run you through it, and we'll see if this is a quality product. There's ARCCAPTAIN, got the Welder MIG 200. Let's get this thing unboxed. Even got some cool stickers. All right, so in the box we have the welder, we have gas hose, the power cord is already on the welder, we have the ground wire that plugs into the welder, we have a stick welding unit here to weld, the stick welding, and we also have the MIG gun. We've got some consumables that they've sent as well, and they even sent the Teflon tape to hook up our gas line. There is also a 220 to 110 adapter, so that means this welder will run on 110 as well. So we're going to continue unpackaging this welder, and we'll get it set up. We'll get reading the instructions. We'll see what kind of features it has. So the welder has clear markings on here. This is the positive, this is the negative. The positive for the MIG welder would go in here. Now we're going to hook up the stick welder first. It's got these turn to lock, twist lock connectors. We've got the negative connection here. So now we've got our stick welder lead and our ground hooked up. We'll get this thing plugged in. We'll give it a try first on stick mode. So we're all set up for our initial try with the stick welding. And I think what I'm going to do to see how easy this thing works is I'm not going to look at the instruction manual, and I don't recommend you doing this, but I just want to see if I can figure this thing out, how easy it is. So let's get with it. So we've got our power cord hooked up. It comes with a standard 220 power cord. We have a power switch back here in the back. We don't have to worry about the gas hose. You can hear the machine start. So let's go up here. We're going to select mode, I'm thinking. And it's on stick weld there. So let's go through the modes. There's TIG. This is a multi-process machine. You can stick TIG, I believe spool gun. So aluminum, steel, stainless, all that. There's MIG. There's MIG. So we'll stay on the stick. and then you can adjust the amperage here. And let's see, hard and soft start. Here's the amperage. So we'll see what kind of rod we're going to use and to see what kind of amperage we're going to need. So we're going to use some 1/8 inch 6018, which usually runs about 90 to 120 amps, depending on what type of welding you're doing, what position you're welding and stuff. So we're going to go with about, let's go to 110 amps, and then we'll give that a try. Got a couple pieces of scrap steel here. We're just going to do a standard lap joint, see how it goes. So Welder ran incredibly smooth. You know, you don't, like the old welders, you don't hear it arcing back and forth and stuff. This little spot here is me. I haven't stick welded in a while. I was going a little too fast, but ran super smooth. I like it. So we're setting this thing up for MIG. This machine will run a 10-pound spool or a 2-pound spool. All I have is a 2-pound spool. We're running solid wire, steel wire. This machine will also run Flux-Core, where you wouldn't need to run gas with it. The problem with Flux-Core, which there's not really a problem, but you would have to chip the slag just like you would with a stick welder. It creates a slag. That's why I always use solid wire. But for farming purposes, if you were out welding in the field and didn't want to carry around a gas bottle, I would run the Flux-Core. Say you're doing a pipe metal fence or something like that. You don't have to drag around the bottle, and it just welds like a stick welder. So to run the 2-pound spool, you just take the bigger pulley off of here, put the washer and the spring back on here, and we're set to go. We're actually going to hook the gas up, so we'll get that next. All right, we got the gas hooked up. The hose supplied with the unit had a different thread than our metering valve, which is common. Only thing you'd have to do is get a bushing to go in here and it would hook right up. Now, I use my existing gas hose for my welder, and it was compatible with the back of the ARCCAPTAIN welder. So we're still going to be able to do this test. Now also for the MIG process, we have to disconnect our stick welding positive lead there. And then the lead coming out of the welder, just find the notch there till it slips in and turn that. And then now we need to unwrap our MIG torch, pull this plug and plug it in here. You can see you've got 4 different connections on the inside of that. So you just want to make sure all of those are lined up when you go in. Give it a little rotate and it'll slip in. Then all you got to do is turn this knob to secure it into the hole. Now next thing you got to check is the tip size on your torch here. We're using 030 wire, and the machine comes with all 4 selection from 040, 035, 030, and then I think that was 23 there or something like that, or 25. So we need our 030, but I'm going to go ahead and run the wire out of there before I put the tip on. You want to make sure your hose doesn't have any kinks in it. And then we'll run our wire out the end here. The machine speeds up when you hold the feed button down and you're not welding, so the wire will come through quicker. And I can feel it coming up the hose, and there it is. So now we'll put our tip on. Now your nozzle just pulls on and off. So once you get your tip in, you just can snug it up with this one or loosen it with this one right here. And then your nozzle will just slip right back on there. So this welder comes also with different pinch rollers. It just so happened the size that we needed was already in the machine. So we're good to go there. We'll lock that in there like that. This operates your tension on there. But for different wires, you would use different rollers, like there's a V-groove roller, a knurled roller, and then different sizes. So like for the Flux-Core, you would use the knurled roller, which is identified by the number and a K on the pinch roller. But we're using 030 wire, and we've got the 0.8 millimeter pinch roller in there, so we're good. So now we need to change our mode with our mode button. We're on stick mode there. That's TIG, if we had the optional TIG torch. That's MIG with a spool gun. You can see the spool gun there for aluminum. And then there's our regular MIG. That's what we want there. Next thing we want to set is our wire thickness. It's already on 030, but if you want to change it, you would push this button here. You can see all of your different sizes. There's 023, 030, 035, and 040. Put that back on 030. You can see the numbers change as you change the wire, so it automatically adjusts for that. Next thing we want to set is our gas type. That is straight CO2 gas, which you can use on a MIG. You don't get a clean finished product. We use the mixed gas, which is argon CO2, which is that setting right there. That would be for your Flux-Core wire, where you don't need any gas. And then that would be for your stainless. And then that would be for your aluminum. So let's go back to mixed gas. Now this button up here changes you from separated to synergic mode. Right now we're in separated mode, where you can adjust your amperage and voltage individually. If you put it in synergic mode, you'll see the icon come on here. The welder is automatically set up for the parameters you selected with your wire feed and all that. So let's go back to our 030 wire. It automatically sets the voltage and the amps and the wire speed. So pretty slick. Now you'll notice in synergic mode, when we increase our amperage, everything changes correspondingly. So that's in your automatic mode. If you're in separated mode, it would only change your amperage. You'd have to dial everything else in separately. Now this center button over here lets you select different MIG functions, which is really cool. I've never had this ability. So right now it's called 2T mode, and what that does is normal MIG, when you hold the trigger down, it burns continuously until you let go of the trigger. Now if you put this thing in 4T mode, you touch the trigger, it will continuously run. You can let the trigger go so you don't get hand fatigue with long welds. It'll run until you touch the trigger again to stop it. That's a sweet function. And then if you press it again, it goes into spot welding mode, to where you pull the trigger and hold it. It'll burn for a specific amount of time and then stop. Pretty slick. So we're going to put it just in standard mode because that's what we're used to, but we would definitely use those other functions for sure. Now this button up here lets you change parameters. So different functions or different modes have different parameters. So like right now it's in V, so you can make minor adjustments to your voltage in their current configuration. Say you went to spot welding, you could control your spot welding duration. Oh, let's put that back on S. You can control your spot welding duration by turning this knob also. But we'll go back to our other mode here. Back to 2T mode, 030, mixed gas, MIG. Here's your voltage here, your incoming voltage. It automatically senses that. So we're plugged into 220. So it's showing 220. If we were plugged into 110, it would show 110. Now on 110 incoming voltage, you can't weld as high of amperage as you can with 220. It would be for thinner material. So we've got this thing set up. So why don't we get fired up? We'll leave this on about 120 amps. Now this knob here adjusts your start, either a hard start or a soft start. Right in the middle, it's a standard start. We'll leave it at that, but you can fine tune that as well. Now, one of the things I really like about this welder is they didn't dumb it down too much. There's still enough adjustment in this thing where even a professional welder can dial things in the way they want them, but it's not so much where a amateur user still couldn't use it. Now, before we get rolling, I like to hit our nozzle and our tip with some MIG anti-spatter. It helps keep things from sticking to that, and it'll give you a longer lasting consumables. Well, there's our weld there. You can see we started out a little cold. We heated it up and it laid in a lot better. Pretty impressive. It runs really smooth. You can hear the fans running now because we've been running it. Once it cools down or whatever, it'll shut down again. I'm impressed. So 4 different functions in this one welder. Now, to weld stainless, of course, you'd have to change your type of wire. Everything else would remain the same with the exception of your gas. For stainless, you need to use a different gas. For spool gun, this is the connection for the spool gun right here. The reason you would use a spool gun is for aluminum, because aluminum is so soft you can't just throw a spool of aluminum in the welder because it won't push it all the way through this lead. That's why you need the spool gun, so it's only got to push out the end of the gun and it won't get stuck. But you would also need the different gas also for the aluminum. So it's cold out here in the shop. I'm going to take the manual and head in the house, look it over a little bit, see if there's anything I missed. Now, this welder is also equipped with a voltage reduction device, or VRD, which when you're not welding, it decreases the voltage of the welder, so there's less chance of electrical shock. If you're ever in a wet environment or your gloves are wet or something like that, it can get pretty dangerous. So that's a pretty sweet feature. Now, reading the book, I found the amperage for the different voltage. So for the 110 volt, depending on the process, you can go up to 160 amps, which is really good for 110. And then if you're on 220 volts, you can go up to 200 depending on the process. So that's a pretty good amount of amps for that little suitcase-sized welder. Very impressed. So looking up the prices on the optional TIG torch and the spool gun, the TIG torch runs around $60, and the spool gun is just under $190. It's a lot more involved than that. That's why it's more expensive. It's about $340 around there for the welder. So for the price point, you just cannot beat it. It does everything and more that my almost $4,000 welder out there in that shop does. So the price point is absolutely fantastic. Now, they've offered an 8% discount to all your viewers if you use the discount code welding001. So that's another benefit for you. And then there's a link to their website down in the description that you will see down there. So check them out if you're interested in this. This is a fantastic way to get welding on your homestead without breaking the bank. So thumbs up for this product. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys check it out. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We hope to see you soon again here on Mark Kelly Farm.